The story of the Knights Templar begins in a world reshaped by war and faith. In the year 1099, a great army of Christian knights from Europe, known as the First Crusade, achieved a goal that had seemed almost impossible. They fought their way across continents and captured the holy city of Jerusalem. For Christians in the West, this was a moment of incredible triumph. The city where Jesus Christ was said to have walked, preached, and been crucified was now under their control. This victory sparked a new wave of religious excitement. Pilgrims from every corner of Christendom, the richest lords, the poorest peasants, felt a powerful urge to see the holy places with their own eyes. It was considered the ultimate act of devotion. However, the journey was far from safe. Around the year 1119, nearly 2 decades after Jerusalem's capture, a French knight from the Champagne region had a solution. His name was Hugues de Payens. He was not a great duke or a famous warrior, but a man of middling rank who had likely come to the Holy Land on crusade. He had seen firsthand the slaughter of pilgrims on the road from the port of Jaffa to Jerusalem. He and 9 other knights, including Godfrey de Saint-Omer, presented themselves to Baldwin II, the king of Jerusalem. They proposed a new kind of brotherhood. They would take vows like monks, but instead of a life of quiet prayer in a monastery, they would dedicate their lives to the active, armed protection of Christian pilgrims. The king was impressed by their piety and their practical plan. He granted them a place to live in a wing of his own palace, which was built on the site of what was believed to be the Temple of Solomon. This location was hugely significant. It was one of the holiest sites in Christianity and Judaism, and it gave the new order its name, the Poor Fellow Soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon. From this grand name came their more common title, the Templars. The journey of Hugues de Payens to Europe was a resounding success. With the crucial backing of Bernard of Clairvaux, he presented his case at a church council. At the Council of Troyes in 1129, the order was officially recognized by the Pope. Bernard of Clairvaux himself helped to write the rule book known as the Latin Rule. This document laid out the strict code of conduct that every Templar knight had to follow. It was a detailed guide for their new way of life, blending the discipline of a monastery with the readiness of a military garrison. It was their founding charter. The Latin Rule governed every aspect of a Templar's existence. Knights were required to take vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. This meant they could own no personal property, could not marry, and had to obey the orders of their superiors without question. Their lives were to be spent in prayer, training, and fulfilling their duties. The rule dictated what they could wear, what they could eat, and how they should conduct themselves. Luxuries were forbidden. Fine clothes, flashy equipment, and even hunting for sport were banned. The Pope decreed that the knights could wear a simple white mantle over their armor. This white cloak symbolized the purity of their new lives. Later, a red cross would be added to the mantle, a symbol of martyrdom, representing their willingness to die for their faith in battle. This uniform made them instantly recognizable on the battlefield and across Europe. The order was led by a Grand Master who was elected for life and answered only to the Pope. Hugues de Payens was the first to hold this powerful position. With papal approval secured at the Council of Troyes in 1129, the Knights Templar entered a period of explosive growth. The endorsement from the Church acted as a powerful seal of approval, and donations began to pour in from all over Europe. Kings, queens, wealthy nobles, common citizens, land, castles, farms, money, other valuable assets. In a very short time, the order went from being the poor fellow soldiers to one of the wealthiest landowners in the Western world. They established a network of commanderies, managed their estates, recruited new members, funneled wealth eastward to support the war effort in the Holy Land. This papal sanction gave them unprecedented privileges. A papal bull issued in 1139, Omni Datum Optimum, It placed the Templars directly under the Pope's authority. No king, no bishop, no local lord could command them, could tax them, could interfere with their operations. They were a truly international autonomous organization. Their properties were exempt from local taxes. They could build their own churches, bury their dead in their own cemeteries. These freedoms made them incredibly powerful and independent. The primary role of the Templars evolved quickly. They continued to protect pilgrims. Their wealth and growing numbers allowed them to become the elite standing army of the Crusader states. Shock troops, frontline heavy cavalry, they could turn the tide of a battle. They garrisoned the most important and dangerous castles on the frontiers of the Kingdom of Jerusalem, Chastel Blanc. They were a permanent force. Unlike crusading lords who would come and go, they provided a stability that the kingdom desperately needed. Disciplined, well-trained, fanatically brave, often fighting to the last man rather than retreating. As the Templars' network of commanderies spread across Europe, they found themselves managing vast financial resources. This necessity led them to a new role, the first international bankers. A pilgrim, a crusader, could deposit money at a Templar commandery in London, Paris. They received a letter of credit, a coded document showing the amount. On arrival in Jerusalem, Acre, they presented the letter to the Templar headquarters and withdrew their funds. The system removed the risk of carrying cash on dangerous journeys. It was built on trust. They had a reputation for being incorruptible and were bound by sacred vows. They were also a formidable military power, making their treasure vaults extremely secure. European monarchs, nobles began using the Templars as bankers. They stored wealth in Templar preceptories and even took loans from the order. The Paris Temple became the de facto treasury of the French monarchy. The Templars developed sophisticated accounting methods, a complex bureaucracy, becoming pioneers of finance and credit. Banking made them wealthy and influential, but it planted the seeds of their destruction. Their riches and privileges, like tax exemption, created resentment. Other religious orders were jealous. Local bishops disliked their independence. Kings who owed them money began to view them as arrogant, secretive creditors. The image of the poor soldier monk was replaced by that of an untouchable international corporation, a tempting target for cash-strapped rulers. The end of the Crusader presence marked a turning point. In 1291, the city of Acre fell to the Mamluks. The Templars fought to the end, their Grand Master killed in the final defense. Survivors evacuated to Cyprus. With the Holy Land lost, the Templars faced an identity crisis. Their primary military purpose was gone. The final act of the Templars' story was driven by one man, Philip the Fair of France. By the early 1300s, Philip was deeply in debt, having spent enormous sums on his wars with England and Flanders. A significant portion of this debt was owed to the Templar order itself. The Templars' wealth, independence, and their fortress-like Paris Temple, which loomed over the city, represented a challenge to his authority. He saw in the order a solution to his financial problems and a chance to consolidate his power. He began to devise a plan to seize their assets and destroy them once and for all. It was a cold and calculated political move. On Friday, October 13, 1307, Philip put his plan into motion. In a shocking, coordinated raid across all of France, his agents arrested every Templar they could find, including the Grand Master, Jacques de Molay. The charges leveled against them were sensational and designed to cause maximum outrage. The Templars were accused of heresy, denying Christ, spitting on the cross, idolizing a mysterious head known as Baphomet, and engaging in obscene rituals. These accusations were almost certainly fabricated, a smear campaign designed to turn public opinion against the once revered order and justify the king's actions. Under torture, many of the captured Templars confessed to the charges. The methods used by Philip's inquisitors were brutal and relentless. Knights were stretched on the rack, had their feet burned, and were subjected to other horrific torments until they said whatever their captors wanted to hear. Jacques de Molay himself, under immense pressure, initially made a partial confession. Though many knights later recanted their forced confessions, the damage was done. The final tragic chapter for the Templar leadership came in 1314. Jacques de Molay, the last Grand Master, had been languishing in a dungeon for 7 years. He and another Templar leader, Geoffrey de Charnay, were brought before a crowd in Paris to hear their sentence of life imprisonment. At this moment, in a final act of defiance, they dramatically recanted their forced confessions. They proclaimed their innocence and the innocence of the order, stating their only crime had been to betray their brotherhood under torture. An enraged King Philip the Fair ordered them to be executed immediately. That same evening, they were burned at the stake on an island in the River Seine. With the Grand Master's death, the Knights Templar as an organization ceased to exist. Their lands were absorbed by other orders and by the crowns of Europe. On the surface, Philip's plan had been a complete success. He had eliminated his creditors, seized a vast fortune, destroyed a powerful institution that challenged his royal authority. The Templars were gone. But their story was far from over. The shocking injustice of their destruction, combined with their former power and secrecy, ensured they would not be forgotten. The Templars left behind a tangible legacy that shaped the medieval world. Their military innovations, disciplined cavalry charges, advanced castle designs, influenced warfare for generations. More importantly, their pioneering work in international finance laid the groundwork for modern banking systems. The idea of letters of credit, complex accounting, a trusted international network for transferring funds was revolutionary and helped fuel the European economy. They were not just soldiers, they were administrators and innovators whose systems outlived their order. Their greatest legacy was arguably in the world of commerce. Yet, the most enduring legacy of the Templars is the legend they became. The speed and brutality of their downfall, coupled with the mysterious charges against them, created a powerful myth. People have been fascinated by them for centuries. Were they really heretics, or were they innocent martyrs? What secrets did they possess? This fascination has spawned countless books, movies, and conspiracy theories linking them to everything from the Holy Grail to Freemasonry. Though the historical order ended in 1314, the idea of the Templars, secretive, elite soldier monks guarding ancient knowledge, continues to capture the popular imagination, ensuring they remain a subject of endless debate and speculation. Yeah, their story really endures.